I said, I want to get an MBA. And that seemed very different and unique, but something about it felt really right to me. And so I went then from looking at behavioral health from a research lens to a clinical, community, hands-on lens, now to a business lens. And I would take my evening MBA classes and I would work still in mental health facilities during the day. And I would just try to see how I can match those two worlds the best that I could. As I went through the MBA, learned a lot of cool things and noticed how the psychology, business, persona, and also my life experience could all take shape. And it was very exciting. After I graduated my MBA, I wanted a different job. I was working as an admin in an eating disorder PHP, and I loved it. That was another setting that was incredibly illuminating, but I wanted something a little more business-centric because of my MBA. And so I applied to a lot of jobs. I applied to general consulting jobs. I applied for nonprofit management jobs. I applied pretty broad because as much as I loved mental health in the industry, of course, my goal is to help human empathy and it's to help people in a lot of different ways societally. So I really cast a wide net with my applications. I did get one offer that eventually became my job, and that was to be a salesperson for a behavioral health EHR, electronic health records company. And this was interesting because I had used electronic health records for years working in these clinical settings, and I hated them. EHRs are the bane of people's existence. And I now had to sell one of them. How do you find something redeeming to talk about with an EHR? So I was not convinced that they were going to hire me. I was in this application and interview process convinced that they were just using me to get intel on the market. They kept, people in the interview kept asking me questions. How would you sell this against that? What EHR are you currently using? How would you sell against that product? I was convinced the questions that they were asking was really just to get inside info on their competitors and get inside my brain on how a clinician brains work and how they could sell against my EHR. But then they gave me the offer and I was like, this is real. And so then I worked in sales, behavioral health software sales for 3 years. And that showed me a lot. And I sold to large nonprofit organizations. And I went from being the lowly case manager making $25K, $30K a year in a housing program. Now I'm talking to the CFO of that same nonprofit who manages all those programs, right? So I'm talking to IT directors, I'm talking to CEOs, and really trying to sell something that can help solve the issues in their organization, which was really interesting and wonderful to understand how to navigate a sales process, first of all, but also how to ask about pain points. What are large behavioral health organizations struggling with right now? That was what was on my mind for 3 years straight. How can technology help solve their issues? Or how does it at least play a role in solving their issues? So this was incredibly valuable and something that we will continue to see for decades and decades, for all of time. How does technology intersect with healthcare and help individuals evolve and grow in their wellness journey through their providers? And then how, of course, do the providers manage that data? How do they manage their internal systems and grow and manage the change that occurs with this shift? And so selling into that space was incredible. It allowed me to learn how to tell a story, how to manage a region and market, and really leverage relationships and really know where to lean in a process and what to hit home when you're truly selling something against competitors that have been in the field longer than you have as a company and as an individual. I was selling as the underdog way more times than not. I think at the very end of my tenure, we were kind of the favorite at the very end of my tenure because we got a lot of clients in my region towards the end there. But in the very beginning, you're selling as an underdog and you're selling this annoying concept of an EHR to organizations where they don't want to think about EHRs. They have a million other fires they are putting out. They are handling the mental health crises of their clients every day. The last thing they want to see and hear is a stupid salesman asking them for a follow-up call or a check-in call, or how does your EHR currently meet your needs or not. It was an uphill battle, but it definitely taught me how to make myself, or at least communicate in a very human way in the sales process, and how to not just tell a story, but tell a valuable story to individuals who make true decisions on the well-being of their clients and of their staff. And that was this third lens now that I saw behavioral health from, this technology vendor problem solver lens that had a direct line to the executive level, the C-suite level. So I was super, super grateful for that as well. And then I got laid off in December of last year from that sales role. And so now it's, okay, what can I do? What do I want to do? And being in this entrepreneur space, and I'll say this too, entrepreneur/consultant space. Consulting, I think the things in our lives that elicit the most strong reactions from us are typically the things that are the most meaningful to us, or at least maybe have some underlying meaning to them and what they symbolize for us. Consulting to me always seemed too gray area for its own good. And I think that's sometimes how I see myself. And so naturally, it might be a perfect fit. These two entities, consulting and myself, two things that are very gray, and love operating in the gray, and love communicating within the nuance and the complexity of these problems that we're facing and the things that we need to do on our day-to-day lives professionally. So I knew consulting was the idea because I'm very good with people. I'm good at talking and assessing problems and communicating solutions to people and working with them on a kind of a longer term vision. So now running my own business, running a consultancy, a marketing consultancy, I'm getting a direct access now to private practices, to group practices, to individuals who are just that, individuals, not organizations necessarily, but individuals who are growing up the ranks of the behavioral health chain, so to speak, and they want to put their skills to the test. And that's kind of where I fall into as well. I'm an individual professionally who always likes to level up their skill set, and I've done so in the last few years. So I'm now seeing the pain points of this individual private practice or group practice owner, and how they can get creative and how they can keep their businesses growing, and how they can use the past to hopefully catapult into the future. And there are maybe a couple things that being an entrepreneur in the mental health space really has shown me so far. Number one is listen to your market and have a dialogue with them. It's one thing to listen, but you have to communicate back. Once you hear about some ideas or hear about some pain points that either your clients or your potential hopeful clients are having, start to craft something around that, craft an offering, craft a community gathering, craft just a feedback form. Try to then give something back to them. Once you hear a need or you hear something coming up, give something back, communicate back in some way, and then gather more feedback. So it's this game of tennis back and forth with the market. And the mental health market is changing so much. It's also a very sensitive place because you're going to have people from all walks of life crave mental health support in some capacity. And the models and the methods of delivering that support is going to be so varied. And so therapists and the needs of coaches and the needs of wellness providers are going to vary throughout all cases. So always keep an active ear and keep that dialogue going with the market to really understand what's happening year to year and where you and your solution and your style and your approach and your experience fit in, because it's such an ongoing thing. And the other thing I would say about being an entrepreneur in this first year in the mental health space is authenticity is very important, but above all, I think just conscious business practice is super, super critical. I've noticed it a lot in myself, right? Whether it's I'm working with a vendor to help my own business, and just knowing and feeling who I want to go into business with, whose solution hits me, whose experience hits me, but how their style, their approach are aligned visions. That is super, super important for me. And I noticed that's what's super important for all my therapist clients and all the people out there. They want to feel that you are aligned with them on what they're doing because they have chosen this professional path that is not particularly lucrative. I'm sure these smart, high EQ people could be doing a lot of other things, but they really chose intentionally to go into the mental health world, to be healers, to be providers for others. And so they are going to be very intentional about who they align with and who they partner with, as they should. And you should as well, being an entrepreneur in this space. So if your business involves therapists, involves group practice owners, involves mental health professionals at all, always understand that they also operate on this other dimension of, are they real? Is my vendor real? Are they authentic? Do they align with what I am doing? Do they get it? Because I think therapists, again, every session, they work with people. They're really good at listening. They're really good at parsing out the BS, and they're really good at discovering and noticing the true intentionalities of individuals, whether it's their clients or whoever else. So as a business aiding the mental health industry, try to be yourself. Try to infuse your story. Try to show up as real as you are, because most of these professionals are going to be able to sniff out inauthenticity, and it's not something you want to align with.